Hello and thank you very much for watching. For today's video I've brought you to the Million, which is a private wood on the edge of Enville in Staffordshire. I've come here today because I'd like to try and see if I can find some interesting relics that I came across here many years ago. Now unfortunately they're not on a map and I can't remember exactly where they are, so it could be quite a challenge today, but we'll set off and see what we can find. Right, well, just now I mentioned the Million as a wood, or I referred to it as a wood, I should say, really. Perhaps really it should be more of a plantation, because in fact that's what it is. It's basically a crop. It was actually planted out in the 1950s, maybe even as early as the late 1940s. But yeah, it's a crop, unfortunately. So when you get the locals up in arms when they hear that the owners are cutting down trees in the Million, I'm afraid that's what they're for. They were put here for that very purpose. At the end of the day, we need wood, we need paper and so forth from it, so I guess it has to be done. And commercially, that's indeed what it was put there for. At the end of the day, they plant trees, they let them grow. When they cut them down when they're ready, and then they plant some more. So I don't know whether that's environmentally friendly, I'm not really sure. But prior to the plantation, it used to look more like that. It's open heathland. And my interest in this area is particularly because during World War II, this open heathland here was used as a training camp for the Home Guard. So multiple Home Guard units would come here to complete various forms of training during the war years. I believe they were very temporary camps, probably just tented, and as a result there are very few or very little evidence remains now of that role. Now there are a few things here which is what I hope to show you shortly. So we head off again and see what we can find. Right, well I've actually managed to find the first thing I was looking for very quickly indeed. And here it is just behind me. You see there. Doesn't look terribly exciting, does it really? But this is actually a backstop to a firing range. So it dates back to World War II, to the Home Guard training camp. Look more closely, you can still see where it took hits from whatever gauge ammunition it was that they were using at the time. Let's continue around this side. Bit of modern graffiti there. And round to the back, you see the reinforcements there on the back. Unfortunately it looks like it's being a bit undermined just there. But yeah, that's it. So that's item number one. World War II Home Guard training camp backstop. Now I'm sure that there was another one of these very close by. I think it was in a slightly worse position than this. It was, if I recall, leaning at an angle, but I don't think it was as well, it still looked as solid as this one. So we'll go in search of that next. And also there's a brick structure as well, which I found many years ago, which also may be related. So I'll head off, I'll try and find those, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, well while I'm looking for those two other features, it might be worth mentioning there's something else here as well that was of interest, and that is that there used to be a race course here in the Million. You can actually see it on some older maps, certainly around 1890, 1900. I think by then, or just after then, it was probably pretty much disused. But you say it's still shown on the maps. When I was back at school in the, well yeah, I won't go into that. When I was back at school, on our humanities department wall, they used to have a large ordnance survey map, which was probably dated 1960s, 1970s maybe, something like that. And it still showed the route taken by the race course at that time, just marked out by two dotted lines. And I think it still shows on some of the current ordnance survey maps as well. But there's basically nothing really to see on the ground now. You'd be hard pushed to find any evidence that it ever existed here. Okay, well, we're back at the firing range backstop again. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to locate the other backstop or the brick built feature that I was talking about. I do wonder if the other backstop has actually now collapsed completely and been covered over, or maybe they managed to demolish it and remove it. I'm not really sure, but either way I can't find any trace of it here. Although if you look at the woods around us, it might be quite difficult to spot something in the distance through the dense trees there. So I'm just going to go and have a look, see if I can find the brick structure that I mentioned. And I have got a backup plan, which is if I can't find it, I do have some photographs from when I was here before, and I might have to cheat and show you the photos of it. So let's head off and see if we can find the backstop, the brick building. There are also some interesting rumours that at one time there was an ammunition store here, an ammunition dump, and around about 1982 a number of military lorries were seen entering the million, allegedly to remove the munitions that were stored there. This was at the time of the Falklands crisis, and apparently they were required for that. Now, I've heard this from one or two different sources, but to be honest with you, I find that quite hard to believe. Basically, there's no sort of hardened bunker or any sort of place where you'd store a large amount of munitions. I can't imagine that they'd still be here from World War II. It's possible, I guess, possible. And whether they'd still be any good by then is another matter. So, no, I don't think that there was. I think it's probably just rumour and hearsay. But who knows? You never know, maybe. Right, well, I'm going to have to admit defeat, I think. I've had a real good look around. I can't find that brick structure anywhere that I was telling you about before. But as I said, I have got the photos, so I'll show you some photos of it and just cheat a bit, I think. So here you go. This is the brick feature that I wanted to show you. These are photographs that I took back in February 2014. It looks to me like it could date from World War II, certainly if you look at the brickwork there. And it even has bullet holes in it, similar to those in the backstop. Unfortunately, there are no hints as to what its purpose actually was, or if indeed it was part of the Home Guard training ground. I could be completely wrong, and it may be much older, perhaps even something to do with the race course. I guess it's possible that we'll never know. Now, another thing comes to mind when I'm here at the million, and that's going back to my second video that I did, the one about the Kinver and Enville Home Guard. Now, Kinver and Enville Home Guard was pretty well organised. In addition to this, there are several, should we say, country estates around here that have plenty of private land. The reason I mention this is because I'm intrigued as to whether the Kinver Home Guard had an auxiliary unit. The auxiliary unit was a small, very, very secret group within the Home Guard. The identity of the members was only known to the members and to no one else. And their role was basically to stop behind in the event of an enemy attack or enemy invasion. And it was their job to cause as much disruption as possible to the enemy and hinder them as much as they could. There's no way, being such small units, they could actually stop the enemy, but as I said, their role was basically to hinder them, to slow them down, and generally cause as much trouble as possible. To help them with this, each auxiliary unit had a little bunker, which most of them were built to a standard design, and they were built on private land normally, out of sight and away from the public, so nobody knew that they were building it. And we have plenty of places that could be around here. I discussed this with our local historian David Bills for many, many years, but we never managed to find out whether there really was one or not. Unfortunately, the auxiliary units were so secret that no records were ever kept. So we simply don't know. If the Kinver Home Guard had a bunker, it was, well, It could be anywhere. It's not been discovered. Nobody knows where it is. And I just wonder, maybe it could be here in the Million. And there is another location which exists within the Million, which is a bit strange. Now, although auxiliary units were built to a standard design, some were improvised, and I often wonder whether this is such a location. I don't know. We're not going to see it today. I'm going to save that for a future video. So I'll leave you to ponder that. And in the meantime, just want to say thank you again for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you can. At least leave me a like or something like that if you can do that. All would be very much appreciated. And I'll see you again in the future. Cheers.